Well, it's got some gems.
Good.
Tough choice.
I opened that accident. Getting rid
I can't see what I'm
of-
doing.
Oh, good. So much. Oh, thank you. Yeah, he already texted me. Aren't you gone yet?
32 days.
Who's counting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I did get a confirmation from James, but. Because we hung up in the same traffic, I got hung up in, I was at the head of the line, like only 6 or 7 towers down.
Where are you coming?
Berwick,
Oh.
236, you know where the
Yeah.
railroad trust is, the bells kept going off,
Or-
so the police, they were directing traffic. Then they had a shop, switch and shift.
Yeah.
So we had to wait for them to come and go, and then they finally sent us on our way, but the bells were still ringing. So, yeah.
The gym was right across the street. so
Okay.
it really works.
Yeah.
What's the point of yours? I just say ZBA. If that makes sense. Don't have I don't send those, but because I have to record it too. I just, sorry, I can't. I know, can that one come this round? Yeah, I went through it again, yeah, and it actually. That's really not. Right. Oh, look, that. It's just. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, tomorrow I'll be here till. Then we actually got just a meeting.
Yeah. There's so many new dates.
So that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got.
Start something.
I think so. Yeah. I think it's. So I feel like. She can start.
Nice. Oh. Still have that 12 years. Yeah.
Best of friends, but it'll just be some family here. She's two boys.
She's
Oh, yeah. I know, I've survived a lot of things. But that's how it goes. So close and close to 35. We're just.
Sierra, Andy is. By a month. And then the other one's coming in October.
Yeah.
Andy's coming in October. Maybe so we just figured October and Kevin said
For Wednesday.
I have 2 days. No, I haven't. It's a trifecta.
Very nice. Once again.
That's all it takes.
This Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Apparently there's been So I said, Amy wants a margarita machine, Amy wants a nice coffee machine. Amy whatever she wants to.
Anna told me she's taking something. So she has to.
Yes. Yeah.
They do it.
Yeah. Yeah, they usually are starting after.
Really?
Gestation.
Yeah.
And most people, so many women, they get it right.
You can plan. Oh, good.
Yours has a good sense of aim and personality. Yeah.
The other guy wasn't good.
No, he's away.
40 minutes of travel.
We have a fourth, we have every class, but couldn't make last year's in June because he was saying he was away on vacation. And I contacted this one, he was like, you're joking, right? The same week I'm on vacation again. I said, that's fine. We need to have a more body.
No, I was like, I don't know if I actually ever met you. So nice to meet you.
I'll go, yeah.
I know, we've only lived there for 8 years.
How long?
8.
Oh my God.
I only know that specifically because we both lives when my son was 4 months old and it was a transition. So I can now vividly remember him being 4 months old.
I can remember that. What a day.
He was actually
140.
Oh, really?
You want to use Hayward?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said.
Wow. And the basement was. Imagine. Oh, so I, luckily had only B boxes, that's the only one I did. But then I said, okay, everything was in those B boxes, and I just come over.
Finally, like, settled in that evening, and they finally got me gone in the house. I remember it being-
Then I looked at his bed.
Yeah.
And she was with me.
She was wrong. Imagine. I think she could have. So I.
And I thought that was why it was, I didn't. Be the person to, but I was- First time it was fine. I was grateful for you guys coming over and our Jack.
Kevin came to me too, and he, see what they have, you know, where Ian started stuff, yeah, you know where Ian had good stuff. That's right. He actually, you know, he just went everywhere. He was my cubbies out.
Yeah, exactly. She's like.
Because this is gonna be changed over to assessing, planning, the rules. So there's some downstairs jobs.
I think that there's 3 people, there's 3 people, so they can vote. And they can't do So, Ready is going to. Maybe you can separate, maybe step out of the market.
12 people.
I went away.
neighborhood. I have a television. I told them to install this. Yeah. Not bad. We just. You know.
What's that? I'm sorry. I have extra copies too. Yeah, I have it right here.
Yeah, I'm down to 3 days. I'm in May. So they started by giving me an extra day. So I just want to cut down 10 hours. Get me 36. So I was just.
Do they want the second part?
Yes. I think that's the one I need.
Sorry.
I can be. So I come down the law through April. That was 2 days. Is that the way it's going?
There's no definition.
We're so proud. There is a. Okay, automotive repair and service. Okay. So we've always just. We closed down first. We started down with, interest rate right now.
Right here.
Like that. Go ahead, question.
You're better than me.
Great. The middle.
Oh, my.
Ew. That's right.
Right.
Is it a June vacation?
Same week as last year.
Oh, okay.
And you couldn't make last year's meeting because it was the same week.
That's why I'm seeing at the office.
That's funny.
Yeah.
We have our list for time.
Sure.
Public police.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Whatever questions I have.
Do we still do that? Well, we can talk to you.
I don't know.
No, I know.
Yeah, no, she's officially here to help you figure out what you need.
Yeah.
Still too.
Oh,
Joe's happy to just. He's the expert. He's the expert.
Okay, yeah, and if he's here.
Yeah, right.
We have a nice program.
Now this program, she always like, she always did that. No, God, yeah. He was my favorite. Me, but he's my latest.
Okay, it's 6:41 and I apologize because it was me while we're waiting on, but we're gonna call the meeting to order now and first order of business is I am going to hand it over to John. Just to start with the leaders of the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay, the next item is the roll call, so I'll introduce myself. I'm James Mundy. I live on Hall Street. I guess it's been about 2 years now. It seems like I've been on zoning board of appeals and then and I believe I'm also the chair now that Smiley Rogers has stepped back from that role. So and I'll let the other two board members introduce themselves for the record if you want to. Go ahead, Maya.
Yeah, I'm Maya Bo, live on Academicus Road. And, I've been in South Berwick since 2009.
John Klausner, I live on Highland Ave. I've been on this board, I think, 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so it looks like our first order of business is the minutes from our prior meeting, which at this point I think was so long ago, it's hard to
Yeah, we
remember.
actually didn't have a recording of that. So
Okay,
there's nothing to unfortunately, we have them all and it's all been settled. But I don't-
okay, so I'll just correct that we're not, there's no need to approve the previous meeting minutes. So then any members of the public, if you would like to reserve time to speak on any item that's going to come up today. And also if you need to know what those items are, you can ask, but I think our next item is if you can tell me your name and what you'd like to speak on, which the two items. Is it just the one?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
We have to do anything on Frank's resignation.
Just acknowledge.
Yeah. So we'll get those, unless anyone wants to comment on Frank's resignation too. But so go ahead and you can just raise your hand and I'll get your information. This is so we don't forget anyone when it's time for the public to speak, and also so that I have your name spelled right and we know who everyone is. So would anyone like to speak on any of the items that are up today?
Michelle Karikas, 15 Camp Street. I reserve the right to speak.
Okay. And Is Phyllis Landry?
Yeah, I'm Phyllis Landry and I live at 13 Parrot Street. And I would like the right to speak.
I see one in the back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mark Benoit, 14 Parent Street. Like the right to speak.
You said Mark Benoit, B-E-N.
OIT.
ARC.
And,
I'm his wife, Cam.
Okay,
14
Cam.
Parent Street, yeah, same last name.
And I'm Sue Goodell, and I also live on Fair Street.
is that Goodell?
Only one, each letter, Godel.
Okay. And when it comes time, we'll have Michelle and Phyllis will have a chance to speak as the applicants. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Shannon Catella. I'm at 16 Parent Street,
Spell your last name for me, please.
QUINTELLA.
And so we'll let the applicants have a chance to speak when it comes to that item, and then they've also reserved time if it comes up again, but we'll give everyone else who gave us their name a chance if you would. So, because there is a point where we close the hearing, to the public input, everyone can stay, but we go into deliberations, and at that point, we can't allow anyone else to say anything, and it's hard sometimes because you see us talking about things and you want to add something at that time, but it's too late. So that's why we do the reservation of time to speak and give you the chance to talk then, because it's gonna pass later, and then we can't even if we wanted to. So, new business.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Matt Levine, 11 Parent Street.
Okay. Can you spell your last name?
Yes, LAVIGNE.
So you said your address was
11.
11. Yes.
And I'm Katie White, and I live on 83 Young Street.
You said 83 Young Street?
Yes.
So on our new business, we have resignation by zoning board of appeals member Frank Gilson. I'm assuming did he send us a letter? So he's tendered his resignation. I don't know if we officially need to accept it, but yeah, I would move that we accept Frank's resignation with our thanks for his many years of public service by being on this board. I know he did a lot and it's much appreciated. So
Frank will be missed.
Who is it?
Frank Gilson. I can't remember where was he live? It was
Woodstrong.
Woodstrong, yeah. Okay, so that takes us to the application. And just for us to, it's on the notice and the agenda, but just so I can have it on the record as well. It's application for an administrative appeal by Michelle Farikis of 15 Parent Street and Phyllis Landry of 13 Parent Street, South Berwick, Maine. And the request is the appeal of Code Enforcement Officer Joe Russell's approval of a special use permit. It's number 22-011. It's dated May 6, 2022 by applicant Matt Levine. He's a property owner at 11 Parent Street in South Berwick. That's tax map 27, lot 31. It's in the R1 zone. And the appeal for a special use permit was for approval of an auto detailing use as a home occupation. So, and it was granted subject to the conditions of our ordinance, chapter 140-43, home occupation. And in our record, we have the application for, for an appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals. It was filed on May 23rd, 2022 by Phyllis Landry and Michelle Farikis. It attaches a letter. The letter is also dated 5/23/2022, and it outlines the basis for the appeal and the definitions of home occupation and their position on why it's not, they do not believe it's appropriate home occupation of the ordinance. So that the appeal and the letter are part of the record. I don't see any, let's see, there's the application itself, the special use permit that was granted on 5/6/2022. And there are some exhibits to that permit, I believe, that are the tax map showing shared driveway. And I think there's another tax map showing address numbers corresponding to lots. So those are all part of our records. We don't have any other exhibits or materials that have been submitted. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be submitting more.
So when we get to that, we'll mark those, we'll identify them, and we can discuss those internally and then treat them as part of the record as well. Ask the other board members, do you have any items that we should address before we open it up? I guess one thing that I do remember from Smiley's cheat sheet is the jurisdiction, establishing our jurisdiction for the appeal. Joe, can I ask you, is there a code provision that we're looking at for the appeal? Is just any determination by the code enforcement officer on the permit to be appealed within 30 days?
Yep.
Okay, so under the general appeal provision of the ordinance, allowing an appeal of the code enforcement officer's decision for any permit for 30 days, I would move that we find that we have jurisdiction to deal with the appeal because it was filed within 30 days of the permit itself.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that passes. So we found that we have jurisdiction here to appeal. Is there any board member who would have a conflict of interest based on an interest in the business or the location of the property? I don't find any conflict for myself. Okay. So that brings us to the appeal itself. So I'm gonna hand the floor over to Mrs. Karikas and Mrs. Landry. If you'd like to just kind of state however you'd like to handle it.
No. First, I'll give you what else I have. I'll give it to Amy. I have one copy. Is that okay to give you just the one copy that I have to make the packet complete? And what I've added is I have, you may want to go through it because there's some pictures and stuff. And I have an index page first, and then there's about 14 pages. I think what I added was this, whatever I came up with this morning, and a couple of pictures. So that's my exhibit, and it has 14 pages in it. I don't know how many there's, and it includes, let me just step back here. It includes the application for variance, and then the administrative, the CEO's grant for a special use permit, the 22011. The application from Matt from the special use permit, South Berwick tax map. I have pictures of 13, 11, and 9 Parent Street so that you can see the shared driveway and you can see how the little house is kind of set up. And in one of those pictures, you can see how close the garages are because it's all a non-conforming use. So to make it more non-conforming, I don't know if I got that right, Joe, but to make it non-conforming is not going to be allowed. But you know, those little driveways were put there. Those houses were built in the 40s. And those little garages were kind of put there later. I think everyone has a little bit of a garage there. I have a picture of 11 and 13, and that's Mr. Lavigny's house and Phyllis's house. And you can see how the cars line up. And you can also see advertising on his truck. You know, I'm not sure what conditions there were. There was nothing listed under conditions when the original permit was granted on May 6th. So whatever conditions there were originally based on the home occupation, there's nothing written anyway that I could find. And then I also have a picture of Phyllis's deed so that you can see how. And then there's a picture in there of a survey that actually has, and the survey is put on top of the tax 27 tax map. And you can see pins in there. And the survey was done by Carlad and probably done, I don't know, 20 years ago and maybe even more. I don't know. And then another thing that I have is, these are my thoughts. I thought I'd share them. So, this is what I had this drink at 7 this morning. And I kind of just put it together because I didn't really see anything in there that showed any process for making the decision to have an auto detailing business become, and this is also in the packet, but I just thought I'd give it now. I'll actually give one. You want one, Matt, too?
Sure.
You can see what I'm thinking about anyway. So again, I should be welcoming you to our neighborhood instead of doing this. I'm sorry it's working out that way. I'm sorry.
It's pretty disappointed, actually.
So the 140-76B1 was your ability, the zoning board of appeals, to actually see this. You can reverse the decision of the CEO only upon finding that the decision is clearly contrary to special provisions of the chapter. I'm going to go through this whole paper because if you have any questions, it's going to be fresh in my mind too. The application was made on the 6th. Although the business was started before that. The grant of special use permit 22011 as an auto detailing as a home occupation was granted on the 6th also. But there's no apparent backup information to explain the CEO's decision. 140, then I read the zoning ordinance. I read it. 140-9, the definitions, auto service repair is listed. And some of the words that match auto detailing include reconditioning of motor vehicles. But auto service and repair is not allowed on the land use table A in the R1. Okay, it's the only thing I could come up with that was close. Home occupation stipulates that the use must be within the dwelling and must not change the neighborhood's character. Not all vehicles for this business fit into the one-car garage. Not only is the business not within the accessory building, it has come into Phyllis's house. Phyllis's living space has become a sound stage for compressor noise, and the outside a place for wastewater overflow. 140-18, any use which is not listed as a permitted use or a use requiring the site plan review is prohibited. So auto detailing is not allowed in the RN district per land use table A. How it went from auto detailing, the request for an auto detailing business, to a home occupation is a mystery to me. To allow 22011's prohibited use sets precedence for another 11 auto detailing, automotive service and repair businesses on Parent Street. The makeup of Parent Street, the nature of this neighborhood. These houses are built in the 40s. They're 20 small, single-family homes. There's 25 driveways. 6 of them are shared. There's 21 paved driveways. 3 dirt, 1 brick, and 3 lawns used as car parks. 12 standalone 1-car garages. 2 previous single garages were attached to the houses and now are part of living space. Again, this use sets the precedence for another 12 automotive repair or auto detailing businesses on this small street. Currently, there's so many cars on the street. Keep in mind, these houses are built in the 40s. 1 little car, 1 little garage suited everyone just fine in the 40s, brought it up to the 60s, still not a big problem. Now people have 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 drivers in their family. And so it's becoming a fire hazard to pass. One day I couldn't get through, vehicles parked on the street, I backed up. So the parking is an issue. I think we worked very well to try to, get everyone's cars where they need to be. But this business brings in extra traffic too. One more thing, residential use is one thing, business traffic is something else. That one of those pictures shows a car with dealer plates on it. A dealer is using this business. That's a commercial use. There's a vehicle on the lawn right now that's not registered. You can have a not register, you can not register one of your cars, one of your vehicles. You can keep it on your property. I'm not sure how long, but you can keep one. There's no limit on it, yeah. So I'm going to ask the zoning board of appeals, please, during your deliberation, please determine that the CEO decision of 22011 to grant an auto detailing business as a home occupation is flawed and should be reversed. Again, I'm going to go back to the 14018. It's quite simple. Auto detailing is not listed. A use not listed is not permitted. It is prohibited. It is not allowed. It's simple. To make it become a home business, there are 2 ways you can do that. You can do a minor business, home business, or you can do a major home business. The minor one is the one that the code enforcement officer can say, I can grant this business because it's within my scope. A major, which includes, and I think in the first piece that I wrote, I talked about the noise. I talked about being within the building. I talked about not changing the nature of the neighborhood. Again, keep in mind, this sets precedence for 12 more businesses in a little garage. This is not a simple decision. It's a serious decision. And we look at a new code enforcement officer coming in soon. Thank you for all you've done. Truly, that's not sarcastic. But we have a new person coming in. This saddles that person with a very difficult precedence in an R1 zone, not just on Parent Street, but everywhere. It's a difficult precedent to set for someone new coming in. So this is serious. And again, unfortunately, we should be welcoming this family into our neighborhood because it is a family neighborhood. The kids play on the streets. It's a very comfortable place to be. And it's important to not change that character. And I'll reserve the right to speak again later if you have any questions for me. Thank you so much for seeing this.
Should we do, did you speak for both applicants or did we, Mrs. Landry, did you want to
No,
speak?
she needs to speak for herself. Yes, she has a different.
Or whatever.
Do I have to go up there or stand here or where?
Pick her up there, you know. Should be.
Oh, no, you're fine, just fine.
Wherever you're comfortable, if you want
Oh,
to stay
okay.
there, and you can sit as well if you're more comfortable.
Oh,
sitting.
all right. I'll do that. Okay, I'm Phyllis Landry and I live at 13 Parrot Street. I've been there for a few years. I used to live at 14 Parrot Street. It seems on April 25th. Well, it all started when I got a phone call telling me that the house had been sold to a family, and I was pleased. I said, thank you for, telling me. And then it started, that was probably the second week, the last week before the last week in May. And then the following week on a Monday, I see a person in the driveway, a man, and I see cars coming in. And he's working on a car in the driveway. And then the next day was the same thing. And this went on for a whole week. And then the following Monday, which was on April 25th, I called the code enforcer to find out what was going on, because I had no idea. I thought he worked in the garage or he worked for somebody else and so I talked to Joe for maybe 5 minutes or so, and he said, well, he didn't know what to do, or he would have to check into it and find out. And I said, fine, I'd like to know my rights, because all that week, everything you do in the driveway is in my house. I'm inches away from the abutment of the driveway and the garage. So everything that goes on, I can hear. I can hear all the machinery. I can hear the doors slamming. There's no relief from it. All the time they're working on these vehicles. It's all in my house, upstairs in the bedroom, in the porch, wherever I am, I can hear it. And like I said, I'm only inches from where this business is. So it's, it's been very annoying, very bad. I have no peace because he's working all the time. So I hear it all the time. So, and evidently he works 7 days a week. And any hours he wants to. So, it just leaves me with, I have no home anymore. I have a business in my home. And it's very disturbing. I never heard of anybody doing that wants to be in a business and doesn't go somewhere where nobody can hear him or do his work 24 hours a day. It's just mind-boggling to me. I don't understand it. And I don't know how people can do that can ruin somebody else's home. I live in a residential area. I bought in a residential area. I didn't buy in a commercial area to have businesses in my house. And it just, every day it's the same thing, every day. 7 days a week. And then, then one day I heard water running and I thought, oh God, did I leave something running? I'm sitting on the porch and I look out and he's washing the car. The water's all coming in my driveway. I had a chair there. If you were sitting there, you would have got your feet wet. It was going in my garage. It's impossible. It's impossible. And I called, Joe's office and he wasn't there. And I relayed my different things to the girls and supposedly they told him. He never called me, never came to see what was going on until he called and said that he gave him a permit. And I said, then what do I do? Well, he says, well, I can revoke it or I can take it if things, but nothing ever happened. I called the manager, I got a recording and I left my name, he never called me back. So I was getting no help at all from anyone in the town here. So that's why I'm doing this. I don't think it's fair that anybody has to have a business in their home. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think what we were thinking is that we might have follow-up questions for you both as the applicants, and then we would give time to Mr. Levine and then open it up to the other members of the public who had reserved some time to speak. So, but if you think of things, just once we get past you, you'll have time again. But then we will wrap up the public comment section. So I think I'll open it up to the board members if they have follow-up questions or specific questions about what we just heard from the applicants.
I've got a couple of questions. Just I wasn't clear on your presentation. So that you do share a driveway?
It's abutted,
Okay,
and
so
it's,
like you're right next to each other. I'm not
Yes.
clear on,
yeah, like I said, I'm inches
Yeah.
from,
but you have a separate driveway for yourself and he has a separate driveway.
No, they're abutted.
It's one driveway.
It's one driveway.
It's one
Yeah, I'm
driveway.
sorry.
Yeah, we'll just go one at a time when we.
30
Sorry.
feet wide, 30
Yeah.
feet wide, they
Okay.
split it.
Okay. And in this picture on page 9, Mitch, I wasn't clear what you're trying to show us here.
That picture, I believe, is the advertisement that's on the,
Okay, I
on the
see
truck.
that, but I didn't know if there was something else you were trying to show.
Well, you can kind of see the proximity of the houses.
Okay.
It's on the same driveway, so that water spillage goes where it goes. The little garages are probably about, well, a person can get through them. I haven't done any measurements on the garages. But that's typical of our neighborhood, that there's that little house and then that little tiny one-car garage.
Okay,
Car and a half, actually.
so if I may ask, is this is Mr. Levine's house?
Yes,
it
Right here, okay, and this is
Phyllis's house.
Phyllis's house, okay,
Right.
all right.
And I'm on the other side of Phyllis's house.
Yeah. Okay.
So what we're looking at is that's the driveway. So it's just, is it just paved continuously across
I bet, I'm sorry.
Yes.
the driveway? So what we're looking at in this picture is just, this is one wide driveway that spans both lots. Okay,
But again, one of those shows where the buildings are, the other one shows the advertisement on the truck and home occupation. Now, the truck can go anywhere it wants to. However, home occupation, one of the numbers talks about advertising in 140, is it 140-43, talks about advertising, and there won't be any external advertising on the property.
on the structure. And if we'll just, as whoever's go, yeah, everyone's gonna get their turn, so we'll just try to get everybody to get a chance, and then I won't let anyone interrupt you either, okay? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure what this page was representing.
That one's just Phyllis's deed. That
Oh,
just
okay.
shows you the property, I don't know,
Page 11,
where the lines go.
okay,
We didn't find there was a survey of Phyllis's property at one time, but we didn't find that,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
We found the deed.
With, excuse me for reaching here, but the purpose of showing that was to,
I just added it because
Oh,
I found
okay.
it.
okay, I didn't know if you were claiming that somebody was crossing property lines or
Oh,
something.
no.
Other questions I have are for Joe, so sure. Wait, okay.
Yeah,
We'll do that.
and what I've done is I've just marked, I marked up the packet that we have from the applicants as just exhibit numbers. I started with, or letters, I started with A on the first photo and just went B. The second photo, C for the tax map plan overlay, and then D for the deed, and then E for the kind of the summary, the typed up summary, so. And I'll let, maybe we can leave open accepting those kind of into the record until we let everyone comment if they have any issues with how they represent what they purport to represent. So, and I know I'm going a little out of order from the names that I took, but why don't, it seems logical, maybe we'll start with Mr. Levine. The floor is yours, just,
Sure. So my wife and I, we've lived in South Berwick since 2012. We live at Woodland Hills condominium place. And we were looking for houses quite a bit because we have a 14-year-old that goes to the Marshall schools. Very excited to have friends, be on the football team, bring the championship back. So when we found a house that was available, because we lost probably a couple of them because out-of-staters coming with cash and out bidding us. We saw this house and we were very excited in the neighborhood. And, come find out, we knew a lot of people there, which is really good. And we just loved it. And it's, I'm just going to just put it all out, to me, we love the town of South Berwick very, very much for my son. And I'm very unhappy that I have come to this because I never got to introduce myself to Phyllis. Never got to introduce myself to her neighbor. It had to come to the day I was washing a car. Felt really bad that the water was going on her side. She came out yelling and I just felt really bad. And so I stopped and I never washed the car again. And the thing is I did the proper steps, talked with Joe, got my permit, followed the codes. And I'm just to the point where I have a lot of respect for everybody and a lot of respect for Phyllis, and anybody that challenges challenges me and everything. It's upsetting because, my son's trying to understand what's going on. My wife's trying to understand what's going on because this is supposed to be a happy time because we have a new house. And, I've been detailing for over 15 years. This is my first time to, I have a lot of clientele. I guess I'm just upset because I'm new to this and I'm just trying to understand it and be respectful to everybody. But I'm just getting the feeling that I don't know, it's just very uneasy to live at a new place now. And because of this, didn't have any intentions of doing any of this, making it hard for anybody. I just get the feel that there's more to it, and I'd kind of like to know. But if there is, I'd like to know. But if there isn't, it's just I'm just trying to understand how people feel because there's everybody on that street doing other things, working outside, mowing lawns, doing this. What is the difference with me working in my garage? I understand there's noise. I am going to correct some things on complaining and everything. A lot of these cars are family and friends that come over and they feel the need to take a picture at a show. They feel uncomfortable coming to my house now. I'm going to try to stay as calm as I can because this is going to get me nowhere. Not all these cars I'm detailing. My parents, my friends have a right to come to my house without having anybody come to take pictures. It is very uncomfortable. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. And can you explain the detailing exactly? what
Yes,
you're doing?
detailing. I've got a car. I will vacuum the car and I will do that inside of the garage after talking with Joe. Because there's no point in doing outside. Like Phyllis says, you get the noise. Because Michelle said, what can you do it outside? I can't do it outside because that defeats the purpose of the noise. If I do it outside, Phyllis will hear it no matter where I am on my driveway. I'm in my garage. If I'm just wiping the vehicle down in the interior and wiping the car, I'll do it outside because I'm not making any noise. I'm just wiping. What she hears is the vacuum and, just my machine that's in there. I understand that the noise level can get, to a certain point because what she's saying 7 days a week, I don't work 7 days a week. I have people over, I have friends over, we have a life 7 days a week. I have my car, my wife's car 7 days a week, opening the doors, closing the doors, going shopping, getting things that we need for our new home. Another thing is I don't go 8 to 5. I go 9:45 and I'm done by 2 or 3 o'clock. I have another car. I could have continued to go today until 5 or 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, but I choose not to because that's the respected time. I'm not gonna go 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. No, it's common sense,
So in here, it was listed as
8 to
Monday, to
5.
Friday, 8 to 5.
and that's
But
not
you're
true.
saying that the hours are more like 9:45 to 10.
9:45 and I'm done by
2,
2 or 3. And then if I have another car, I will wait for the next day because I'm not gonna just do this past 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock and just running the machines. I understand that because I wouldn't want somebody doing that. You know, it's to the point where I needed that correct because it's just not true. And
Weekend
I'm just,
hours?
was that?
Are you doing any cars on the weekend?
On the weekend, last Saturday was the first time that was in my garage. And like I said, it's mainly Monday through Friday. If somebody brings a car and it's something that I can do in my garage, I'll do it. But the thing is that I will do it in my garage. You know, I really don't know what to say because seeing these pictures, it's just very upsetting because I guess it takes this to be why it feels that someone needs to take pictures of, because they think I'm gonna be detailing all these cars when it's family, it's friends. I'm allowed to have that as a homeowner, and I'm not gonna be doing their cars. I apologize for getting upset, but this is not where I wanted to be. Seriously.
It mentioned a compressor in this letter. Can you
Yep.
explain the equipment that's used?
Yep,
and the
I have
noise level
I have a
of the-
vacuum and it's a machine that blows air. And the thing is it's stuck in a corner. And the thing is that muffling, I can muffle that, but if I do, it will burn the compressor out because it needs air. And the thing is that that's why I put it in the corner. But the one I use the most is the vacuum. Normal vacuum that you can buy at any store.
So the one that cannot be muffled is also a vacuum?
Oh, the vacuum can't be muffled. No, I mean,
So
what
there's
are
a
you gonna?
vacuum. and
Yeah,
there's-
it's just like a regular shop vac.
So
vacuum.
what is the compressor used for?
Compressors used to blow out hard things in
Oh, okay.
hard areas. And I was looking at, because it's a small 6-gallon compressor, when you use it, the response time is not as good as if you got a 20-gallon one, because you can use it and it won't go off at all for a very long time. The smaller one will go off constantly because it's trying to keep up with you, what you're doing. And I try not to use that, at all. But if I can't get somewhere in my car or in a customer's car, I'll use it for very limited, but it will go off. Like it'll just regenerate the air.
Do you need a license or certificate to detail? No, I mean, is there any kind of license?
Nope.
or anything? Okay.
Nope.
Where did you, when you were living in Woodland Hills, were you doing your detailing then?
I wasn't doing my detailing as much.
But where were you doing?
I was working at Village Motors.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, having an income is very, very important now because definitely, it's really tough this time. The amount of money that I can do on my own, because I have so much experience, beats working somewhere 5 days a week.
Go ahead.
So in your process, is there any of the activity, the detailing activity that happens outside the garage, or is it all?
It's just wiping, like I said, The only time that I washed the vehicle was that day that Phyllis came out because it was going on her side. And yes, the driveways are, it's really tough because the driveways are connected, but once it goes over that little point, it'll go down right over there. And I'm even willing to put a little bag right there, a bean bag, if I was to wash it, that would just stay on my side. But I've just made a decision and I told my wife, I'm not gonna wash a car. I'm not gonna wash my own car. I will do it somewhere else.
So it's just, the work is just interior to the car that happens inside the garage.
Interior, wiping it down, wiping the windows, headliner, normal stuff. And there's no wastewater. If I was washing cars outside, it'd just be the normal water that everybody else would wash the cars. It's not waste. It's just dirty water.
So from what you said earlier, it sounds like you just do like 1 or 2 cars a day.
Yes, that was my next thing. The dealer plates and the dealer cars that comes in, they only give me 1 car a day.
So you have a contract with the dealer or?
Not anymore. I don't have a contract with them anymore because they mysteriously decided not to go with me anymore. And they stopped. And they don't want to discuss why. Another thing is that I do have my customers and, you know, they'll bring a car, but there's no point that I will have an overwhelming amount of cars that will block everything. It's just 1 car. Yes, I have a truck there with no plates on it because that's a dealer. Another dealer that wanted, you know, saw that I detail cars and they take the dealer plates off because they need it for the next car. I mean, it's just, if someone has a car that wants to be detailed, you know, from me, I mean, I'll do it. And like I said, I'm just following procedures, following code, following whatever I need to do. And, you know, just being respectful as much as I can.
So if somebody said, I have a car, can you wash it and do the detail on the inside? Are you saying that at this point now you're saying, no, I can't wash it, I can only do?
I will wash it, but I will go somewhere else.
I see.
I have a contract somewhere and I don't feel like I want to say where because I'm afraid that word might go out because it's just really weird. You know, I'm not going to go into it, but yes, I have a contract where I can wash my car, wash my customer's car. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So I don't have to deal with anything else. But I still have my permit. I will wipe it in my garage or even outside because that's not making any noise. Any vacuuming, if I have to do something that's more noise on, you know, it's common sense to me. It's respectful because yes, the houses are close. I'll go in my garage.
This may not be relevant for this process at all, but is the garage door open or closed, or does it change from seasonally, do you think?
Well, if I have a small enough car, I can keep it closed. If I have the truck and the tailgate is sticking out, what I try to do is I brainstorm and I try to think, okay, the garage door is open. Let me finish this vacuuming and then I can push the car even further in, that I can try to close the garage. So it's not like I'm just saying, oh, the heck with my neighbors, I'm just gonna do this. I'm thinking of them 24/7 since this has happened.
Is there an alternative to a compressor that could blow the stuff out from the hard to access areas?
There is, but it's not like the compressor, it's the vacuum that I have. You can change it from a vacuum to a regular blowing. But like I said, if Phyllis can hear the vacuum, then that's just going to be kind of, you know.
And just like with the applicants, we'll give you a chance to, if you hear something, just kind of invite to it, and we'll give you a chance to to jump back in but just, I think just for our reference, just on these photos, you're saying that the photos are basically, these are not cars you're detailing,
No,
these are
these are and
family and friends
these
vehicles.
are family and friends, because it was my wife's birthday last week. And I had people over and I had family over, and they were just wondering, and my son was wondering, why is somebody taking a picture? And I believe there was a day that I caught somebody taking a picture. And I asked them, is there, can I help you? Threw the camera down and just sped right off. And that doesn't make me feel comfortable at all. And now I'm seeing where
The truck,
is,
that's your truck that. with
That
the
is,
auto
yep.
Detail.
Yep.
And I don't know if this can be relevant either, but your decal with your business name, that's in your same business. When did that,
15 years.
is the decal, I mean, is it new? Is it
Oh,
new
no,
to-
that, the name of my business has been 15 years, but the decal I've had since, I don't know, almost a year.
Okay.
I just never got around to, to the point where my business was growing, just do some advertising, and then I got my truck, I got my first truck and just decided to put my business name on it.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Then we're gonna
No.
run through the rest
Yes.
of the public.
Thank
but
you.
I think, should we do the exhibits now, put them in the record, or would you like to hear any more? Just. Okay, great. Oh, okay. Okay, so
Should we, Joe, should we?
You're in the public hearing, you should hear all the public concerns first.
I'm gonna go down our list. We have Mark and Pam, and you can both speak.
Yeah, when I 14 Parent Street, and I'd ask Phyllis, do you still hear all these loud noises?
Yes,
And just, just address us and,
Okay, I
it's
just
all
wanted
that's
to
on
know
the
that she's
record.
still
and-
hearing
yeah.
them, because I live across the street, and when he first started, I did hear them, and then I haven't heard anything since. I believe he does it in his garage, like you said, and I don't hear anything, and I live across the street, and there's a lot of times where other people on the streets are, washing their cars really loud with that, I don't know, what do they use, a compressor, just pressure washers and stuff, they're really loud, I hear that and stuff, but I'm really disappointed, that this has come to this, because I feel like this is, a family neighborhood, and I was welcomed with open arms, and here's a new kid that bought my parents' house, and I called Phyllis and said, there's a new family coming in. And we also talked to Matt, and he was more than willing to help her with her driveway, have his young son mow her lawn, and do all kinds of nice neighborly things for her. He never got that chance. And since then, I don't hear his detailing. He parks on the lawn. None of his cars are ever in the road. Okay, up on Young Street, you cannot get through, okay? Right across from Phyllis, they park on the road. My neighbor that we share the driveway with, they all park their cars on their lawn, as do we, okay? So what he does, it's a very small driveway, he's very respectful, and there's no time that he ever goes on Phyllis's side, because there's usually a car parked there where she parks, you cannot do that. Okay, my dad used to live there, so I know how that driveway works, plus I have my own. I feel that this is really kind of unnecessary that we're here. What you decide is what you decide. This young man is trying to make himself a living, and he's trying to be very courteous of Phyllis after he heard that, hey, this is a problem, and he's trying to be very respectful of her. He doesn't wash his cars in the driveway, and now I hear that he's getting pictures taken of him, and people are snooping down, and that's awful. That is awful in this day and age, okay? So he's not being welcomed, he's being targeted for whatever reasons, and the only ones that seem to have an issue, I believe, are in this front row. And there's other people that sit on the other side of him, across the street from him, as do I. And I'm very upset for Phyllis. I understand that she's upset, and I just would like to have this solved in a different manner. You know, this young man is losing his lifestyle. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Mr. Woodline, did you want to?
Been there for 30 years. She's never welcomed anybody in that neighborhood. She's yelled at every kid that ever went in that yard. She parked her car in the middle of the driveway, so whoever shares that driveway can't get by. When her father was dying, we had caretakers she's out there fighting with, because they went on her side of the driveway. I used to snow,
Unless limited to just, you know.
I used to snow blow that
Hold on
driveway.
one second. Just the issue in the appeal is just kind of the use now as a home occupation and kind of what, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm giving you some feedback on what the problem is,
Yeah, and so, and usually there is.
because you don't see that part of it. You're only hearing about the, there's no compressor noise, okay? It's a shop vac. It's a leaf blower. You take the hose off and plug it in the other end, it blows. You take it off the other end, it sucks. It's a shop vac. Everybody has one. I mean, one car a day. I mean, instead of taking pictures, they should have videoed it, because it would have showed you and give you an idea of the no noise. Okay, so the other neighbor that's on the other side of the house, he wouldn't come, and I know it's irrelevant, but they're all for him. All these people don't have time to come up here, nor do I. But to get after him, like I say, you know, with a kid, I mean, it's ridiculous. That Mitch has 5, 6 cars in her yard when her boys are home. Okay, what's the problem there? No problem there. We all have 5 or 6 cars in our yard. 30 years ago, when everybody moved there, they had kids. Okay, they got their license. Shannon has 5 or 6 4-wheel drive trucks in her yard, all her boys. So every Saturday and Sunday, the pressure washer's running all day. It's not him, it's me. I have a 4-wheeler. I'm washing that every day. I have 2 Harleys. Okay, there's some noise around there, and it ain't him. So they better pick another battle, is what they have to do. Thank you. Ridiculous.
Mrs. Goodell.
Thank you. Well, I would like to say, I pretty much emphatically agree with Michelle's position on this, in that we are clearly in a very close, tight designed community, a neighborhood that was built in the 40s on a very small scale. And it was never intended to accommodate any kind of commercial business activity in that kind of situation. It just isn't. I'd really like to ask a question at this point. When this variance, or whatever we want to call it, this exception to the zoning was granted, was there an on-site visit? Did anyone go to see what the potential impact would be of this kind of activity in that exact location? And I'm shocked that a variance can be granted to a driveway that is shared in this way without the other utter even knowing about that.
And we'll have some of that discussion in a little bit. We'll be talking with Mr. Russell
Because that concerns
about
me. I
that.
mean, I think that's really a bad practice if that's what's happening. So, and all the, it's true, we have a lot of cars in the neighborhood because, times have changed. We all struggle with that. Traffic is an issue. I've seen it, and it's happened to me, it's happened to all of us. It's really it's often difficult to get down the street because there's parked cars all over the place. And I've done some of that myself when we have people over. It's difficult. But I think that also then speaks to the importance of not making this kind of an exception. I think this is a terrible precedent to set, to allow, more and more kinds of vehicular activity and commercial equipment and noise in this clearly residential situation that's struggling to fit the way it is. I think the last thing we need is more noise from commercial equipment of any kind. Shop vacs are noisy, and I certainly wouldn't want to live next to one. And I think it doesn't really matter if we can't hear it down the street. I heard it at first. I live across from Michelle. I heard something, and I'm more concerned, but I'm more concerned with the noise and the dogs that live right next door to me, because we are so close. We're 15, 20 feet apart, and that's the distance that Phyllis and Mr. Levine now share. So it doesn't matter that we don't hear it 3 or 4 doors away. What matters is what the next door neighbor hears. Because we all live in this neighborhood, we all have a next door neighbor. And I think we can't set the kind of precedent where an extra, if you're only bothering one neighbor, that's okay. I don't think so.
Thank you. Shannon from Tella?
I live directly across the street from Matt, and I don't hear anything. And I've been out of work for 3 weeks because I've had a few surgeries and my windows have been open during the day. And the noisiest it is when his truck starts, because he has a kid he takes to school, just like all the rest of my kids have loud trucks and get up and go to work. They get up, they go to work. He's in and out a lot, taking them to practices and stuff. And that's a lot of the vehicle noise that you guys hear. But you don't hear the vacuum and stuff in the garage. I've been out for 3 weeks and I haven't heard a thing, and I am directly across from him. And he's a nice guy, and he's just trying to get by, and you guys are making it really difficult. It's not like he's not working on stuff. My boys work on stuff in the yard. My boys work on their trucks. They're loud, but it's my house, it's my yard. I can do what I want in it. And so can he. If he had 10 cars in and out every single day, yeah, that would probably be different. But the traffic through our street is ridiculous because it's where everybody cuts to go around to get out of town. So it's hard when there's cars parked. But I have 6, 7 vehicles in my yard easily, my whole front yard. You've been to my house, John, because Jesse went to school with your son, and that's what they are. Their girlfriends are at the house now, and it's just a parking lot. Like, it is what it is, but
Junkyard.
it is a junkyard. But you don't hear it. It is a shop vac once in a while, but it's no different than me opening my windows and vacuuming my house every single day, which I do most of the time because of the dog hair. Everybody has neighbors and everybody makes noises. But not everybody in the neighborhood is looking to build a business on it either. Everybody's there. Everybody that has lived there isn't gonna make.
Setting though.
And yeah.
Could be, that's gonna be doing a lot.
It could be, but it could be worse. He could be dealing
We'll
guns
give
out of
people,
his
we'll give
house.
people a chance to, comment on what has happened before. I just want to make sure that one person has the floor at a time, and we can move it back around. Just, we can get back to you if you raise your hand. But so go ahead and you can finish your thought. And we'll.
But I just don't think he's doing anything wrong. He definitely isn't any noisier than my house is. From the time people start leaving at 5:30, the trucks start rolling, 7:30, everybody comes and goes throughout the day. And he pulls the car in, the garage door is always closed. And I just haven't heard him, and I've been home for the past 3 weeks since he moved in, all day.
Thank you. And I had one more before we start going back. Katie. Did I get it right? Katie White? Okay.
So I am here to just attend because my property abuts all of the entire row of Parent Street. So I also have 2 small children that I am raising in the area, and was actually very excited to know there were little kids coming to move in the area. They've been in my backyard playing and on my swing set, and I have welcomed everyone over there. So to say that I'm against this is not true. I'm here to be educated and
Are you the
to,
one with the swimming pool?
yes.
Oh, yes, okay.
I'm the one that everyone's peering over the gate wanting
Yeah.
to come into the
You
swimming
have
pool,
the
yes.
nice, you have the nice lawn in the back.
I have a landscaper husband.
Yeah.
So I'm here because I want to know both sides of the story. I want
Yep.
to hear what's going on. I have a husband that works with equipment, but for another company, and it's not on our property. So I'm here to hear what's going on. And so I just ask that, I agree, I was welcomed into this community, and I feel very lucky. I felt safe and supported. And so it's sad to hear that that's not the same experience you've had. But I also have a property that it abuts your entire property too. So I don't want a lot of chemicals 5 days a week
Yeah.
going into my yard and my groundwater. And so I need to know what's going on. So I'm here to hear both sides, and I hope that we can have a respectful relationship then.
That's fine.
And we'll- I'm on right behind.
Ready for
This is, yes,
Oh, okay.
down.
Okay, now, as I promised, everyone has had one round of speaking, so if you did hear something that you wanted to comment on, I'm gonna go through real quick. Just try to, just only respond to what, something that was said.
Michelle Karigas, 15 Parent Street. Number one, Mr. Levine, the pictures that I took are not, I understand privacy and HIPAA and all of that. Pictures would illustrate, number one, I believe I only took the 2 pictures of you, your wife, and your car, along with Phyllis's car. I think that's what it is. I did take one picture of a car that had dealer plates on it, but that wasn't a family member. And when I did it, I stood in the road, I took the picture, and then I left. It was not a flyby. Also, Mr. Levine indicated that maybe somebody's not using his business anymore, wondering if it was something that someone said. I can assure you, there was nothing I did besides giving the Amy and the code enforcement officer the papers that I did nothing else. I did nothing else. I did not call. I don't know the companies you're working for. I do my business at Village Motors. If that's them, I did not talk to, I haven't even been there probably for a month. It's time for an oil change, but I haven't been there. So that's not happening. And the neighborhood, we feel we should be welcoming Mr. Levigny in with the, how we welcomed every single other person in. And that's with family, meeting each other. We meet each other in the summertime. We all know each other very, very well. We've all been together for many years. We've been together for many years, all of us. And to have a new person come in is a nice thing to happen. However, because people can't hear this business at their houses does not mean that the precedents being set for 12 other little garages can't happen and happen right beside them. This is not just because Phyllis is troubled by the noise. This is the precedents being set on a business that is not allowed in the zoning ordinance. As a home occupation, I hear you asking questions as a zoning board to see if there's something that can be mitigated with this business. If this is not the time to mitigate this business right now, this is the time to make the decision whether or not you allow this precedence to be set. To mitigate his noise, he speaks already of not wanting to wash cars and send the wastewater. He's already, said he's trying to accomplish that. He's been in business for 15 years in another place. He comes into a neighborhood that's a fine residential neighborhood. He becomes our family. But he also, by doing it and having the special use permit 22011 setting precedents of this happening in every other little driveway. There's 12 of these little garages. The trucks that he brings in do not fit inside the garage with the door shut. That is part of home occupation. Home occupation, you read those those definitions and what the stipulations are. It is within the dwelling that you live in or within your accessory building. And if those doors cannot be shut, the day that I asked, I said, could you bring the car down and, just do it at the end of the driveway? Because the day I was in Phyllis's house, it's troubling to have that sound. You mow a lawn for an hour, you're done, once a week. You do the car washes, you're done. But this is a business every single day. And to say it's not being done, but Monday through Friday is not really true. Now maybe we can change those hours, but this is not the time to mitigate that. The time right now is to prevent this from being set as precedents. So I'm sorry that you're feeling that people are looking at you and spying on you. That is not me. That is not me. I am not doing that. I am not talking to businesses about whether they should go to you or not. It is not happening for me. So I'm sorry that that's happening.
I'd like to, first of all, if the noises of me, if I did not run my own business and And when I first moved in, and I was doing my wife's car and my car, I'm just trying to find out if it would have been an issue still, because everybody on that street I see is doing everything. I mean, your husband I've seen is out, sawing stuff, doing other stuff outside, and we can hear it. But I'm just wondering and it's multiple days and everything, but I'm just trying to find the balance. I'm trying to find the balance of this entire, trying to figure out this entire thing because, like I said, it's one car bringing into the garage. If the truck doesn't fit, the tailgate does stand out and the garage is open a little bit. But I try my best just to push it even more so I can get that garage door to close, but try not to use my vacuum that's loud. And just bring it out and wipe it outside and just try to eliminate everything that's going on, because since this all became everything, just hasn't been enjoyable living there, I can tell you that right now. And my wife, she's very upset still. And my parents, they come down, they're just wondering, it's just, as first time home buyers, it's supposed to be really a happy time and everything. It's not. It's definitely not. And, I'm sure this will, I'm taking I'm just gonna take my family away for a little bit, like I said, because they definitely need it. Because my son is just wondering what's going on. My son is just worried, like, is the town gonna take you away? Is the town gonna kick us out of the house? Is the town gonna tell us to leave? My 14-year-old son. And take in the pictures. I don't know. I can tell you one thing, I'm not gonna talk to my wife about any of this when I get home because she's just so upset. And as a father and as a husband, it's nothing more than I want to protect my family and keep them happy. And it's trying the best I can.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a brief
Yeah.
comment just on what?
Yes, I want to say, Mr. Levine has met me. He said he didn't, but I was getting out of my car one day and he came and introduced himself to me. And he said, he introduced himself to the people, neighbors on the other side, and he knew Shannon's son. He worked with him. And I just said, I'm Phyllis, and I went in the house because I was upset because he had been doing his business before he even moved in. So I was kind of upset, so I didn't say anything. I just said, I'm Phyllis, and I went in my house. So he did meet me. He lied when he said he didn't. As far as being upset, they think they're upset. They should live in my house. I'm upset. And they think they're upset. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And he does, he leaves the garage open whenever he wants. He backs a truck in.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Comments have already been made. She's just reiterating, nothing new is being entered.
thanks. And just because of the nature of the language used, I'm gonna let you have just 15 seconds and then we're
Yeah,
gonna
15
close it.
seconds,
Yeah.
fine. Phyllis, the day that the water was going over.
And just address them
No.
to me, just address them to me.
Oh,
If it
The
just-
day that the water was going on her driveway, I felt absolutely horrible that day. But the way that she presented herself, how's anybody supposed to take it? She comes out, there's a divided driveway. There's a, you have yours, your water's making a huge mess. I'm like, I apologize for that. Then she says, wherever you guys came back, go do it over there. Go do it at your mother-in-law's. Go do it at your in-laws.
Okay. I
How
think-
in the hell am I supposed to take
okay, I
that?
think we have the picture. So I think what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move on to speak to Mr. Roussel about, I'm sorry, is it
Can I
related
can I
to?
make one more comment? So, and Mr. Levine, I'm sorry.
And just to me though, or just to the board.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's unfortunate that neighbors have to meet in these circumstances, but the one concern that I would reiterate is the one of precedent, because it's a business and the goal of most businesses is to do more business, not less. And so however many cars are being detailed now is one thing, but I would venture to speculate that the goal is to do more cars, and therefore it's a more intensive business and commercial use of property that was never intended to be used in that way, and never intended to be that kind of neighborhood. So
Thank you for
that
that.
should be considered.
Now, Joe, do you want to, what's the, so the process for, just the table of uses says that it's minor home occupations permitted with a special
Yeah.
use permit. So what's the process that you use to
Again,
to
like you
review
said,
that?
under minor home occupation, you know, it's supposed to be just whoever's living in the home, you know, can do it in the house or in an accessory structure on the property. And we use this one for either a minor or a major home occupation, depending on what they're, you know, if they're gonna have people working with them or not, stuff like that. So this one here is basically what we use when there's really nothing there. Like computer, somebody wants to do, you know, computer fixing or something like that. They have an office in their house, that's a home occupation. There's no listing of doing computer repair work. Yeah, they have a computer at the house and they're just doing work. Same idea. This here is if you follow these guidelines. Obviously, and I did explain to him when I did visit the property that I told him and explained the rules and regulations, gave him a copy of it and said, you gotta do it inside the building. You can't be outside. So again, if he meets them criteria, then it doesn't violate his special use permit. As far as auto repair and garage, that is for when they're doing actual repairs to the cars and everything else. He's just detailing them. Detailing is not reconditioning. They're cleaning the car out, probably putting some wax on it and buffing it off and stuff like that, but that's not reconditioning a car based on definitions. That's my opinion. But you guys have your own. There was no variance given, so I don't know where that came from. So, you know, I went by minor home occupation. I've done this a million times while I was here because there's a lot of stuff that's not listed in here for these little conditions that people want to do. There'd be a lot of people in town that couldn't do a lot of things, obviously, if they didn't allow at least a home occupation. And there's criteria for it. And if he gets bigger, he can't do it there. Because now he's got to go into, you know, site plan review and the whole 9 yards, and then it comes into all kinds of other things. As far as signage, it's signage on the property. It's on his vehicle. We have nothing in our ordinance to state that you can't have something on your car to advertise, you know, business, public. I don't know where that is. If it is, I'd like to see it, but I ain't seen it in 22 years. So I don't know.
And the one thing I couldn't, well, maybe I don't know the answer to is that where it lists out the standards for the minor home occupation, is that something that they all have to comply with once they're permitted, or is it something that you then reviewed and said,
Yeah.
okay, I think this business meets all these criteria and now it's permitted, or is it
Right.
continuing, or is it?
Well,
implicit?
yes, because I explained all of it and that's what he's supposed to do. So obviously, yeah, if I went by there or something like that, and found out that he's not doing it, it could come to the point that he loses his occupation.
What makes it major?
Major gets into if you want to have extra people there, if you want to have
Oh, okay.
signage, if you have more than one person working, you're gonna have signage on the property and stuff like that.
The
Gets into
outdoor
a lot
storage.
more. Outdoor storage, gets into a
materials.
lot of different things.
You know, regarding, I mean, he says he's only working 4 hours a day, it sounds like, but based on this variance, could he work 24 hours a day if he wanted? Is there any
There's
limitations?
no,
on
it doesn't limit, under home occupations, it doesn't limit town house operation, but I mean, there's where, again, common sense tells you can't do it
Right,
at 12 o'clock at night and stuff like that.
but there's no law that says.
There's nothing.
And the one thing I'm looking at is number 5, where it talks about kind of offensive noise.
And that's
You know, it seems like-
subjective to everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, so that's one that's it's subjective for everything. And some of the stuff that's going on, like you said, mowing your lawn,
Yeah.
mowing, chainsaws. We've tried doing things in town about limiting stuff like that. It didn't pass. So I know, I understand the neighborhood and stuff like that, but that's what I did.
So
So
if neighbors come and say there is offensive noise, at that point, is it an appeal or do they go to the code officer to say, can you revoke this? Without it going through the board of appeals?
and there again, it's one of those subjective things that, what do you do?
Yeah, I think I had the same question, kind of legally, like, once you kind of assess that, kind of like, do you assess all these factors and say, okay, in my discretion, this business complies, and if it's a permit, then once that's a permit, no one can really do anything. But I mean, I guess since the permit doesn't have any real conditions built into it, it would just have the conditions that are part. Is that how you view it? Like the conditions of the permit are the ones that are stated in,
Right.
okay.
Okay.
I'm just keep talking, but can you talk about personal service establishments? I mean, I was looking at the code and it talks about kind of, there's personal service establishments that kind of differ from home occupations. I couldn't really tell why or how. It gives the example of like dog grooming, barber
Right.
shop. So if I bring my dog to someone and they like detail my dog, like, is that different than if I bring my car in and someone does something to that? I mean, is that, what do you think the distinction is there?
That one is, that stuff is described.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would come under that category.
So, according to the table here, table A, so detailing wouldn't be considered automobile service?
It's up to, I look at it and I say, it says reconditioning of a motor vehicle. Reconditioning in my book is not auto detail.
Yeah.
You guys can make that decision.
This may not be relevant one or the other, but are there any other, can you give some examples of home occupations that have, or are there any other auto detailing ones that are?
Yeah, well, not auto detailing, no. There's, people that want to bake and sell baked goods and stuff like that. That's considered a home occupation. Just doing, only, doing it near, they're bringing it to other people and stuff like that. We consider that as a home occupation. There's a lot of online, stuff that they do at home and stuff like that, so that'd be a home occupation. But I mean, it's the little things that they can do inside the house or accessory unit that meets that criteria of the home occupation.
Like if I were doing, like small machine repair, and some people dropped off their lawnmower and I fixed it, is that going to be something like,
That one I think is in there.
or is that one of the listed ones? I didn't.
I think that's one. It's listed. I would have to look, a little more.
Any idea how many other home occupancy businesses are in that neighborhood on Parent? Okay.
Not right off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, it's strange because it says personal service establishment is just something that doesn't meet the home occupation standards and is one of these other types. And so it's kind of like, if If it
So
doesn't
they
meet,
can.
yeah,
Yeah, because there's one on Vine Street that's chiropractic.
We have a daycare.
it doesn't, I'm worried about, like, it lists like shoe repair. Seems like it'd be very quiet to bring your shoes into some, but I don't know about,
Not too many cobblers around though.
why, it's just, I was confused why, it lists dog grooming, but, because it seems pretty similar to home occupation, but it just assumes that it doesn't meet the standards, so.
Well, it's this item 5 is, I think, what this debate is about. And obviously mixed opinions, the offensive noise, waste discharge, etc. I'm on home occupations, the definition,
Oh,
so
okay, gotcha.
I guess I'd be curious if this has happened in the past, if there's a debate about a home occupation. And in that instance, did people come to the code enforcement officer and ask for the home occupation to be revoked, or do they go through the board?
They've complained and then we've gone back to the person and find out, based on the complaint. And most of the time, that's correct.
Just to the extent it talks about kind of floor area, I looked at the town figures for the numbers and they seem to match up. Like it's a 280 square foot garage, it's 1,100 square foot house, it's not more than 25%, but is that something that you look at in terms of the?
Yeah, because that's part of the criteria.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, we would, and if you just want to introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Tammy Bellman. I'm the contract town planner at this point. As of 1 July, I will be the town planner. May I make a suggestion that when you think about the noise level of that compressor, how many people in this town own compressors? I have one. I don't live in this town, but I have one. It runs occasionally. If you're going to limit his compressor, even if he doesn't use it for his business, for his home occupation business, you're gonna have to limit everybody in town with a compressor, with a wet dry vacuuming, cleaning their cars out, cleaning a wet basement out with a compressor to help dry it, or a compressor that when the power goes out. What happens in that case before somebody that needs oxygen, they have a compressor to keep that oxygen going when the power goes out. The compressor is part of the business, but yet it's not. He could probably muffle it a little bit, maybe not. I'm not a technical person with a compressor because I know how to operate it, and that's what I do. But when you look at what he's doing with it, his compressor is not a major part. I did a drive-by today because I said, well, he's got to do business to keep his home occupation going. I drove by. There was not a sound being emitted on that street. There were people out and about, but there was not a sound being emitted. If he has people coming in between 10 and 2 and even 3, and he's vacuuming their vehicles out inside, or even with a truck sticking the tailgate out, but the door is down, that's still muffling the noise. You have neighbors that mow their lawn, that clean their motorcycles, that use a power washer to wash their vehicles. I know any power washer I've heard, I would not want to hear on a daily basis because to me, they're so loud. But a lot of people love them to clean their vehicles. They're great on hubcaps. They work great because they can use all the nooks and crannies. So when you think about how you're going to decide, the neighbor, I understand it's loud. But the other neighbor on the other side and the ones across the street haven't heard it. So I can't, even having driven by today, I saw how close they were, but if some aren't when they're right opposite any noise that would be coming out of the garage and they're not hearing it. I'm not sure why. The noise would be such an issue on one side and not the other.
I mean, it's an interesting question because, you know, I know that they proposed a noise ordinance and it never gets anywhere. Just so you can basically go kind of shoot your
Well,
guns next to your neighbor's house as
You
much
do,
as you
you
want.
do
But
have, you
but
do
here,
have,
here there is kind of a restriction for the it's a
Right.
business.
you
it talks
do
about
have a
offensive
noise ordinance, and it does reference it if you read more into the home office. There's, especially if you go to the major one, you have to follow the noise ordinance. The only problem I see with the current noise ordinance is it mentions a commercial industry. Doesn't mention anything about a home office.
Sorry, not to it.
No, I just, it's kind of sad this turned into a lot of personal back and forth. This doesn't appear to me to be a discussion about person behaviors, but more a discussion of how far could somebody with a home occupancy permit go? And so it has nothing to do with, it seems like he's been bending over backwards, you know, to apply to anything.
Correct.
But this is about, you know, the application of a home occupancy permit
Correct.
and how it can be used.
And Joe, I even went and did some checking with other code enforcement officers and said, if this was presented to you, how would you handle it? And they all did the same thing Joe did. They said, for one, the signage on the vehicle doesn't relate to the business, the business on the truck does not relate to the property. Two totally different entities. There's no sign for his business on his property.
But the conditions listed here need to be met for the home occupation. to
Correct, he doesn't
continue.
have a sign.
But the part about having it within, so item 1 about having it entirely within the building, if it's a larger vehicle, that can't be met. And but if there's offensive noise, that would be
Now,
related to a business versus a
about-
homeowner.
you have to think about offensive noises. What offends you won't offend Joe, may not offend Amy. It's all subjective. It is all subjective as to how your code
Didn't you
enforcement
say that
officers.
there was something about offensive noise written into something? you looked into?
Yep.
So that
There
at some
is in
point,
here,
some
somebody
board sat
years
down and
ago-
did define offensive noise.
But there's no definition for it. There's no
So it's-
level of noise. You have a noise ordinance, but it's more for a commercial entity. Even it references it through the residential side to look at the noise ordinance.
I think the guidance on there is kind of says nuisance, you know, such as, I mean, traditional nuisance standards where they were designed for like pig farms and stuff like that, you know, so
Right.
it's fairly extreme in terms of what would be a nuisance, but on the other hand, I mean, no one's gonna kind of come and subject themselves to this whole process if it didn't, you know, just for fun. It's like, you know, so I understand it's, you know, it is subjective, but that doesn't change how it actually affects someone who is there, but I think, do you think we've heard enough? Close it up.
I guess one question I would have would be, there's obviously a difference of opinion. And so let's say you say, well, you know, currently we believe, you know, that you will be able to meet all the requirements of a home occupation. And let's just say that in the future, there continues to be a difference of opinion. How do you, if you make a decision to allow the home occupation to continue, and there continued to be complaints that the home occupation was not following these guidelines, would there then be another ability to appeal, or what would be the process of that?
It would be because, like I said, I would take the permit away. And they would have a right to appeal it based on what the complaint was.
So the decision tonight is not necessarily forever written in stone. If there continues to be issues from one side or another, this process could
He still
continue.
has to follow the guidelines.
But when it comes to the offensive noise side, you have to worry about how you're going to interpret it, or better yet, how Joe is going to interpret it, so it is consistently reviewed in the same way.
Tammy, do you have an opinion on kind of teasing out the difference between a personal service establishment that's not permitted and a home occupation that is a special use permit. I mean, it might seem arbitrary that, you know, I can't have my dog for make business, but I can have people drop off cars and take care of that. So is that, what do you think the major distinction is there that they're trying to draw with the code? Because they list, you know, barber shops.
Usually with a personal service establishment, there's a product. It's a commercial use service, not a product. It's included but not limited to is in the definition. So a personal service could be your computer repair. Could be somebody that does embroidery on t-shirts. That's a home occupation. That emits a lot of heat, especially if they use the heat 350 degrees to laminate it onto a t-shirt or attach it to a t-shirt. You have landscaping businesses that are home occupations. As long as they store their lawn equipment inside the garage, they can do it. That's also a part of personal service establishment because they're offering a personal service to a person. So you call, you want your lawn mowed, you want mulch put down, the landscaper comes in and puts the mulch down. That's a personal service. Can you get his dump truck? You may have to rent one to get the wood delivered or the wood chips delivered, but then it's going to leave the site. And his vehicles leave on a daily basis. As far as the home occupation, because there's no particular definition for a lot of the home occupations here in South Berwick, yes, I could see that this would be a home occupation. Because he's the only employee, he's the only one doing the work. And his son may appreciate that because his son cannot work for him, because that would be 2 employees. I don't know that for sure, but his son is of the right age. And that's why he is very limited with that home occupation as to what he can do, because it is a one-person job. If he was to get bigger, he's going to have to hire more employees. Hence, he will have to take it outside of his home. So if it gets busier, and come winter time, I'm not sure. Winter time, they probably aren't going to be detailing their cars because of the weather. You know I don't. I know I detail my vehicles during summer, during spring, summer, and fall. But I don't usually detail it in the winter time. I probably should with all the salt and stuff on the roads. But
How does the board feel about closing?
It sounds like we're already there, so.
Yeah, so I hesitate to open the door to any more public comments because then someone else wants to comment.
I have one question about noise. It's in the zoning ordinance. It talks about decibel levels. It talks about times that decibel levels can be raised and, you know, up and down. So there is noise in the zoning ordinance, but it's based on commercial. So if we're looking at commercial.
no, you're not, because the noise ordinance is referenced even for residential uses.
So it talks, but it is in there,
And the
mostly-
decibel levels are taken from 7 AM to 10 PM.
correct? And there's certain
And
levels.
he's not operating it then.
That seems to be the major kind of complaint about the noise ordinance in general, is it just kind of has a nighttime, you know,
Correct.
so you're not looking at the daytime issues.
Yeah, there are numbers in there, but you've got to have the right piece of equipment to be able to
But
monitor.
for when Joseph in the home occupancy, there is no limit on what hours. He can
The-
operate his business at 24 hours. So that, I
But
mean,
he
it's,
doesn't. He's already stated he only does it.
he
for
doesn't,
6 hours.
but the next person, you're
Right,
talking about
but you're
precedent.
not, let me put it this way, to set a precedent, everything has to be identical. Identical.
So how does that apply
The
in this
same
situation?
R1s, the same R1 zone, the same distance between houses, the same home occupation coming into play. All of it has to be identical to set a precedent.
So if somebody across the street, excuse me, I'm
12
sorry.
garages.
So if somebody across the street opens a home detailing business, that would not be considered under the same application because it's not an identical situation.
Correct, and he would have to make that determination.
Okay.
That was something that the code enforcement officer will have to evaluate on a case-by-case basis.
Almost couldn't be applied this time because there are no two homes that are identical.
Well, even within the zone, even though they've got 20 houses right around that, none of them are gonna be identical with what they, and do it exactly the same way. That's what a precedent is.
So I think at this point, we will close the hearing for any further public comment. We're gonna go into our deliberations. And I think just to try to figure out a game plan. So our standard is that we have to see if it's clearly contrary to, I don't know if I'm the exact language here.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm still a little confused. So I understand the whole purpose of precedent and the definition, but what prevents him from operating at 10 o'clock at night or midnight? He's got the permit, what prevents that?
He's probably given Joe the hours of his operating facility.
So whatever he's agreed on to is hours.
Normally, that's what they do when they
And that's
come
what
in and
that's what the permit is granted based on what they
Correct.
describe their business to be.
So we can reverse the decision of the code enforcement officer only upon finding that the decision is clearly contrary to specific provisions of this chapter. And I think, and Joe kind of pointed out a few of the issues that where opinions may vary. I think one is, the activity itself, is the activity something that is specifically mentioned, on the table of uses that might be prohibited? I think in the appellant mentioned, reconditioning automobiles. I think personally, I kind of raised the issue of personal services establishments, which I still kind of am confused on the definition of, because it seems like they list these things as, illustrative, and they say, barber shop, dog grooming, shoe repair, as examples of things that would be commercial, non-home occupations. But I think, maybe our first decision is just kind of this, do any of these allegations about the signage, the auto repair and conditioning, or the service establishments, does that bump this into a category where it wasn't subject to be permitted? Just in terms of it being clearly contrary to code, if it was the wrong category, then that might be it. Is that something that?
So establishing just the fact that it's not on this list, does that mean that it could not be allowed?
Or is it something on there that is prohibited, or in the, like, so is it auto reconditioning? Is what is happening really in auto reconditioning, or is it, something else? Because a home occupation could be anything really that's incidental to use of the home, but if it's specifically something that's there that's prohibited, then it could be, then you couldn't get it as a home occupation. I think that's what the appellant is saying, is that it's, auto reconditioning, and therefore you can't do it. And also that the signage would bump it into the major, it's a, so is there anything that would make this not a home occupation, or would make it a major home occupation?
We've been told it defines that. It's definitely- Don't interpret it.
Right, that it's no outdoor storage, single, the homeowners of the employee. I don't tend to see it as an auto reconditioning or an auto service. When I think about talking about repair, changing oil, I don't know
we have a, not so much, we always have this checklist. Do we have a checklist we have to operate on for this?
No, this one's more just, yeah, if we see, yeah, we have to kind of look at the code requirements that the code enforcement officer is working under and see if based on that, it was clearly, contrary to the code provisions. That makes it kind of our review is kind of limited in a sense where, I guess the way I see it is kind of, these requirements, you can't tell exactly what someone's going to do after you get given their permit. I mean, he might create excessive noise, or he might start to discharge things, but at the time of the issuing of the permit, you're under those restrictions, and you could, so is it suitable to get the permit in the first place, subject to the fact that it might be then, affected by how you actually do it.
But it has been described that there is a process that if they do go beyond, what they've described in the permit, then people can bring it back before the board.
Right.
So it seems like
Yeah, so I think we have to look at it at the standpoint of when the application comes into Joe, based on the information he had, was there anything that says, no, you can't do this? Which, I think maybe we just go down the.
the one. Go ahead. Well, the one question, the one thing I questions, the anti-use, which is not listed, is prohibited. So this is not something that is listed. So how is that interpreted in this?
I think the way they look at it is that it's, the home occupation is incidental to the residential use of the property, so it's kind of subordinate to the residential use, so you don't need a specific, your home occupation could be like a huge variety of, like I sell multi pies, I fix computers, like but,
Right.
and those aren't listed, but at the same time, like, because they're incidental and subordinate to minor use, they don't change the character of the neighborhood. I think that's what's been helpful here is that, the question of kind of the character of the neighborhood, I think we're all very familiar with. I live in one of those houses. They're not, there's two next to me. So you kind of get it, but yeah, but I think just legally, kind of the home occupation, as long as it's, it basically falls under the residential use, and that whatever specific provisions apply to that. But definitely, if the business was something that was listed and was prohibited, like a bed and breakfast, or I think it was a home occupation.
So if we look at this list, there's definitely a debate as to whether some of these are not being met or not. I guess the question would be, can you continue your home occupation and meet all of these requirements? Because that would be why for the complaints, they would have to have met all of these consistently.
Yeah, I think some of it's kind of a moving target because you don't know, you don't know what someone's going to do, and there's some subjectiveness to kind of what's offensive. So, I mean, the stuff that's kind of cut and dry is like, there's no outdoor storage, there's no employment, not like a person not residing on premises, there's no retail sales. So maybe what do you think on the signage? Do you think that should we decide whether the
It's
vehicle?
only on a vehicle. That would really count, I don't think, as a sign.
Really question of the the traffic and the noise and discharge of water. That was, it sounds like, and I think those are really just, those are moving targets. You don't know what, you know, the permit's approved with the condition that it shouldn't generate offensive noise or generate traffic more than is expected, but you don't really, you know. And it sounds like based on the way that he does things, that might, you know, it changes in terms of how much noise or what, you know. I definitely think it's fair to say you can't do anything outside the garage. But in turn, if it is all kind of within the constraints of this, then it's
James, are we able to ask an additional question to Mr. Levine at this time, or you know, part of this?
we're stuck now that we can't go back to. But I guess at the time this comes to the code enforcement officer, I mean, they don't, you know, as long as it meets the constraints that you can actually review at the time, like the square footage or the, you know, whether someone complies with these terms is kind of an open item. Unless like your business was like, I don't know, testing foghorns or, you know, I don't know if there's something where you just right off the bat say, no, this, you can't do this here, but. I can see the argument that, you know, kind of customary home occupations were things that didn't involve kind of noise or, you know, right, I'm a psychiatrist, you know, like I see people, I don't, you know, just, but, you know, you're not like. I guess my position would just be that when it comes to the code enforcement officer, these conditions aren't here in the permit, but there's nothing that excludes the issuance of the permit. Because it's not something that's excluded from being a home occupation in general based on what the business is. Theoretically, he could comply with all of these things. And so why not have the permit? But whether it's violated later, it's kind of another issue. I don't know.
I mean, I'm kind of, you know, what I'm reading from the situation is the concern has been expressed. Mr. Levine has taken steps to address the concern. And that if there continue to be concerns, that there would be additional avenues to pursue to say that this continues to not meet these guidelines.
That sounds right. I mean, I think that's kind of the balance it imposes on them is that, you know, they have to kind of continue to work together in that sense where it's that we can't force anyone, we can't specify accommodations or, you know, any restrictions that go beyond what's in here, but in terms of the people in the neighborhood, they can figure out, you know, they kind of know, they've already started to strike a balance of, well, what's going to work and what isn't. And, you know, because if there isn't a balance, then it's just going to come right back with the issue of the noise, and then it could result in the permit being revoked and another appeal, or, you know, that's sort of where, you know, so it doesn't, yeah, I don't see kind of it being, you know, one result here being a license to go and do a bunch of things that were being done before. It doesn't. It's more about whether the issuance of the permit was clearly contrary to any kind of restrictions that we had.
That does not seem to be the case.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, you're right. With the variances, we have all the very specific kind of findings we can make. And I don't, you know, I think we should make maybe some. Well, and I don't even, yeah, the fact, I don't know. It may not even be that fact dependent if it's just, it might just be the legal issues that are raised that would make it contrary. So like, is it, you know, is it an auto detailing or is it a a use that's specifically prohibited, like auto, what was it, auto reconditioning?
And would our decision be set?
Auto repair service.
Any auto detailing decisions?
Because it would have to be exactly the same situation. Yeah, and you do have to do a findings of facts because you have a zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
So no matter what your decision is, you will type it up. And put that on.
Do that. How do we, what we were saying, usually we have to go through a 4-point decision.
Correct, that's for a variance.
But that's for a variance, so what we do.
One of you will make a motion to uphold
Okay,
the code
so
enforcement
just a
officer's
simple vote.
decision, correct?
Okay.
Or you can, to deny it, to revoke the permit, whatever you decide to
Yes.
use your motion as. With a second, and then it will call vote.
I guess it is kind of a finding of fact if we say, kind of, with what we've heard here, does the business meet, the standard of like an auto repair or service that would be prohibited?
Well, it's gonna be-
That's probably
We can,
important.
we can establish all that after we make a vote.
Yeah, I think it would be either way, but I think we know how we thought of those, so it's more about the record for the findings of that. Can I not make, as the chair, can I make a motion?
Mr. Chair, you can make a suggestion that you're looking for a motion,
Okay,
and someone else can call it, and someone else can second it.
okay, I propose that we make a motion on the actual, the issue of whether, I guess maybe the one way to say it is whether we find that the issuance of the permit was clearly contrary to provisions of the zoning ordinance. Yeah, because it could be any kind of provisions that, in terms of, it could be in the table of uses or in here, so I think just, yeah, the ultimate question, kind of,
Can you suggest one?
yeah, let's,
Approve the decision of the code enforcement officer, is that the motion?
The home occupation.
yeah, sorry, one second. Okay, so do we find that the code enforcement officer's decision to issue permit 22011 was clearly contrary to any specific provisions of the zoning ordinance? That might be the way to. Yeah, that's the other thing we have to figure out which. So was it? So yes, I think the question is, was the issuance of special use permit? So 22-011 fair contrary to specific provisions in zoning ordinance. And no vote would be would equal upholding the permit. That might be the way to the ultimate question of just another findings. Sure.
As a motion. Use that language.
Yeah, move to vote. Yeah. Someone may need to move to vote on whether the issuance of the.
I vote to vote on whether. Three handwriting, zero. that the code enforcement officer's issuance of 22-011 clearly was contrary to specific provisions of the zoning ordinance. I'm not sure yet.
Is there a second? And I'll just restate as I.
Yes, there's a second.
So there's a motion to vote on whether the issuance of the special use permit 22-011 was clearly contrary to the specific provisions of the zoning ordinance. And just to clarify, no vote would be to uphold the permit as issued. We'll do. I mean, I guess we're here in person. We on Zoom. We used to have to identify ourselves and say how we voted, but why don't we just go down? Let's start with John Costner. And James Mundy, I vote no. And I vote no. So that's 3 no votes, which again are voting no, that the issuance of the permit did not violate specific provisions of the zoning ordinance. So that means that effectively the appeal is denied as to the issuance of the permit itself. And follow up, I think, we'll reflect these factual findings in our decision, but I just to propose the fact. Oh, and in the exhibits, John, I think you had mentioned that that's a good idea to. Should we? Do you want to move to enter the exhibits as they're numbered into the record?
Since we've made a decision, we close the meeting and then put on these.
No.
Effects, no?
Don't close your meeting
Okay.
until after your exhibits.
Oh, okay, thank you. So I move that we enter all exhibits as so.
And so we're vote to accept the exhibits as currently lettered A through E. All in favor? Okay, so we've got all of our exhibits. We voted on the issue. We discussed, I think the biggest factual finding I think I would say is that, it's not a prohibited use as listed, such as a, automotive reconditioning or service. And that the signage does not violate, was not within the definition of what's restricted under the ordinance itself. It's on a movable car, not at the business itself. But do you think there's any other findings that we need to get in?
Should we do?
Yeah, well, and one important one might be that find that the standards, the restrictions in 140-43 are, conditions that are adopted into the permit itself, and that the home occupation must continue to comply with those, and therefore, if there was a violation, it could be, revoked either by the code enforcement officer on their own investigation or based on a complaint from someone in that neighborhood.
Well, it's that same, will be subject to.
Yeah. Just as a point of order, we need to vote on factual findings.
Not until they're written,
Okay, so we'll,
because if there's a typo, she has to fix it
okay,
before you sign it.
so we'll review those factual findings as they're presented to us. Otherwise, anything else you think is essential?
Something to think about, board, is once Amy gets them done, you only have 2 weeks from tonight to get back into signing and approval. I believe your ordinance says it has to be back to the applicant within 14 days. whether it be hand delivered, mail, certified mail, however you're going to get it back.
Is there something specific about this case?
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
That
thank
sounded
you.
new.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Because I think before, we actually voted on each
At our
factual
next
finding.
meeting.
We were like, you
Right,
know, in
because
terms of,
the variances you have the 4 different steps.
yeah.
Now, if they wanted to appeal it from here, do you have a stipulation that they have to go to Superior Court? That has to be done within 30 days, and that's a state reg.
If they are.
Correct, but if you don't set a deadline to get the findings of facts out, they don't have 30 days from tonight in which to make their appeal to the Superior Court.
Get the fact, finding the fact on the record. to
Yes, we gotta
make the appeal.
If my recommendation would be to set a date so Amy knows how quickly she's gonna get it back for your review, for you to comment back to her, get anything fixed, and then get you back and give us something.
So then we have
So we can do all that. I can get ready to go, send it to the email, you guys look at it. They don't
Any
need it.
comments? If
I get it ready, they have to come back here and to vote though.
to vote
Next
in
14 days.
within 14 days.
So that's new for me too, so we'll have an application for one, so we will discuss that. I'll get that information to you guys tomorrow. Personally.
And we're all close by, but. and-
Absolutely.
and just everyone in the public, I will say we really appreciate your time to come in here. Keep in mind that, you know, these decisions are based on a very limited legal framework that we have to deal with things, like someone noted. We don't know all the history of the neighborhood, you know, we don't know the personal interactions, we don't get to decide, we don't get to solve the problems in the way someone might in another context. So we work within the constraints that we're given. But our goal is always that if you come here and, you know, what happens is you view it as a loss, then that you at least understand what our process was, and you understand that we deliberated, you know, within the constraints that we had to make a decision. And if you win that, you know, the same thing there. Most people, when they win, they don't care as much about the underlying thing, but it's just, it's important to know that if you didn't get the result you wanted, it's, you know, that we work within the constraints of the code. So but I think, you know, I hope that everyone goes out there and continues to strike a balance without kind of, people tend to dig in these things. I see it as an attorney a lot, you know, but you can also kind of do the reverse and try to reach a balance and because you're still, I'm going to go away and you're all still going to be there. So I hope that you do talk and work it out, kind of get past what's going on, because there are two sides to this, and I can really understand both as a person. So I hope that's what takes you forward from here. Thank you. We're gonna, we need to move motion to adjourn.
Well, could we-
Or
Are
do
we solid on our findings of fact?
Yep.
Okay.
okay, Amy, go back up and then-
Thank you very much. I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, votes on motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Joe, if this is your last meeting, thank you
Oh,
very
yeah,
much.
yeah, just.
You're still gonna come,
I always do.
Oh, yeah. Just, we'll keep that seat in the name tag.
I feel funny.
That's your fire.
Yeah.
Tammy, thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Still learning. Tammy, thank you. I still learning. I have no idea what's going on.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
It comes from,
I will be.
I can't have a hard sense of myself. Some days I feel like
Yeah.
doing my heart.
Oh, I hated it.
I can't do it.
Yeah. Like, I'm supposed to be helping him retire, so. he
No,
gets this right.
I used to be a waitress.
Yeah, I think-
Oh, years ago, I was when I heard the name, you guys are tested.
Yeah.
You have to be-
No, we really appreciate that.
Expertise is out
You're
there.
most welcome. Yeah, too bad.
Really good question.
Thank you. Good luck with everything on March.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's really hard to, like,
Thanks.
give advice.
Bye.
If you want to solve their problems, like, what you actually do, so, especially like. You're not supposed to be- But this is. It's really
Unfortunately, even though it's my personal copy.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. I know.
Well, because, like normally, like you point out, we usually have 4 points, so it makes it easier for us to go through it. So up here, I was like, how do we get to
Yeah.
where we're going?
Yeah, other ones are here like twice a month. It's like, imagine how, yeah.
Thank you very much.